if there's a problem and people are scared, fear turns into no. And that's not the right answer either. This as a parent, that, like, as a parent, like, I sit with my kids and I see the same drive that I had, and I see the same disregard for safety that I had, because like, there's a reason I watch, the Roadrunner, and I definitely, like, saw Wile E. Coyote strapping himself to a rocket, and I'm like, I get it, man. Like, like, there's kids are wired like that, but you're all you can do is say, like, well, let me just try to mitigate it a little bit and educate them. But you can't say no. I think that's the problem. The problem is you push it down, it comes out sideways. You say no here, then it's going to come out over here, right? Like, that's the but our society is very fear based, and we saw that during COVID. It's like, so then the natural reaction is, well, just don't talk about it, and it's not there, and that's not the answer either. So it's like, what's that sweet spot?
And this is, I would love to talk about you being a father, and you're a super dad. Your son's one of the biggest actors in America at the moment. But how was it when you come home from war, come home from overseas and being in a war environment, and you talk about it? I watched an interview the other day. You struggled as being a father and a husband, and what's the changes been since, like, you've gone on this healing journey from then to now and seen your son do what he does?
Yeah, I was just having it's Mother's Day, and we just had, like, a family kind of talk, and it was a very emotional talk, and it was about our lives and stuff, and my son, when he was younger, when he was 10, he said he wanted to be an actor, and I kind of approached it the same way I approached being a musician or being a SEAL, and you break it down into little pieces, and he had some amazing success, and now he stars in a show called Percy Jackson. He's Percy, and our life over the last few years, he was in the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds, and that really kicked it off. And then we've had this ongoing Disney series with like 3 billion streams, and just crazy. And I think that the thing that has been, there's no book, first of all, like, how to handle this is like, there's parenthood in itself. I'm like, I wish I was back in Afghanistan getting shot at, because at least I got a response. Like, I can figure that out. Like, it's like, I think Chesty Puller, who's an old Marine, he said it in Korea. One of his young lieutenants came up to him and said, "Sir, we're surrounded." And he said, "Well, that simplifies things. It's just fire in every direction." And that's kind of what life is like now, being a parent in this situation. But I feel like the best part of this has been that not being afraid to be transparent about my struggles and the places that has taken me, and the dings and the healing and the consequences. And I have an 18-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old. 2 years apart, just like Navy deployments. They haven't been like it. This healing process, even though it's been difficult to say the least, it's also been one of the best opportunities to help, like, mentor, and like, and that level of transparency about consequences for your actions. And when you're God, this is, I think I cried like 2 hours today. It's been been an emotional day. No, and it's great. It's actually it's great, because it's given me an opportunity to be. I didn't have a really great childhood, and I was alone all the time, and now I have this family, and it has it's very, sometimes it's hard. They look at you and you're like, well, you're this, like, in their mind as a kid, they see you as like Superman, and you're supposed to have all the answers, and every dad has it. And I thought in my head, like, well, I got to go do all this stuff. So when I'm a dad, because I didn't really have anybody to, like, I got to go do all this stuff. So I have all the answers for them when they're ready. And what this journey has allowed me to realize is that you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have an answer. And that can be, I don't know, but I'll find out. And what, being able to say I'm wrong. You know, the ego is the most destructive force in human history. It's also been the most productive force in human history. It's a double-edged sword, and it will take you to places. It makes you unreasonable. To get to the pinnacle of any sport or anything, whether, like, you're, like, again, you're an artist or an athlete, like, to get to the next level of anything, you have to be completely unreasonable, and you have to be someone who is okay with failing and then getting back up. And it has, like, everybody always looks at the success at the end. They go, oh my God, well, that's great. Look at this. You were just successful. And they're like, well, yeah, you don't realize all the pain it took to get to that moment. Right. And going through the concussions and the healing and the spirit and the psychedelic assisted therapy and the spiritual stuff has allowed, the spiritual awakening has allowed me to take the ego that I needed, that was important to do the job that I was doing. You have to be unreasonably confident in your abilities to kick a door in the middle of the night or jump out of an airplane on night vision goggles. Like, you have to be unreasonably confident to do the things that we do, to walk out in front of 60,000 people and play extremely complex sport. Like, you have to be unreasonably confident and a big ego, and that takes you places. But it's also, if once you're done with that, it can become the most destructive force, because it makes you unreasonable and you deny things that are right in front of your face. You're like, well, we'll just fix it. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. And that doesn't work with parenting, and it doesn't work with marriage. And so, like, I'm so thankful for the injuries and thankful for the failures now, because it's when I'm wrong and I screw something up, or I say something the wrong way, I'm not afraid to walk in and go, I fucked that up. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm human. How can I do this better? And I found that having, without those injuries and without the experience, I wouldn't have the humility to say those things in a loving way, and hope that I can meet my kids where they're at and earn their respect, not just because I was an unreasonable athlete or an operator, but I learned how to put the genie back in the bottle. And when you get into entertainment with my son, like, I can see the pitfalls, right? You can see where this can be a bad thing. You can see where it can get out of control. And I see so much of myself in him as that young 18-year-old going to Buds, or being a vaulter, or playing rugby, or being in the SEAL teams. Like, I can see that in him. And I can also say, I can tell you where that's going to lead you. And I can tell you the parts you do need and you don't need. And it's, I think that's really the blessing that came out of all of it is, God makes you into who he needs you to be. And then if you're willing to explore the healing, then he'll heal you. And I really, I look at our situation now and I'm like, I could have never imagined this would have happened and we'd be where we are dealing with the things we're dealing with. But at the same time, it shifted my perspective as to, like, what's really important. And now I see my job as, I had a good friend of mine who said, the only thing you can take with you from this life is the souls of your children. And if you raise them correctly, they'll behave in a manner that you're going to get to see them again on the other side. And I get emotional just thinking about that, because then it's not about, now it's not about money. It's not about anything. It's about, like, I just want to make sure that I I save myself and I save them, and they get, or I put them in a position where they have the self awareness, because I want to see them on the other side. And so now it's like, I don't, like, the I guess the entertainment world and that whole world, like, they don't have anything I want other than, like, you can potentially push him off the course, and life in general for any of my kids, right? And so I just, it's it's blessed me with that perspective to approach things in a way that I did not have the capacity to approach them prior to the all the bad stuff, but it ended up being all the great stuff.